Welcome back to Green Rush Live. I'm Josh Kincaid. I'm your host today with Jimmy is out. We got to go and buy a battery for the projector. Jimmy's actually a hologram. I don't know if you guys knew that. He's not even real. But we've got a guest, Tom Howard. He's with Cannabis Legalization News. Yeah.
Yep, and also Cannabis Legalization News. The name of my firm is Collateral Base. I did one of those things where I started a company and then I never ever try to brand or promote it. It was just supposed to sound really good to banks so that I would have no problem opening a bank account as what we call in the industry a tier 2 MRB. That is a marijuana related business, but it's an ancillary and so I just today signed up my first non-cannabis client in like 2 years because of Illinois just being just a turd out there when it comes to issuing new licenses.
Mm-hmm. Talk to me about the Illinois sales. According to Headset's data, your total sales in Illinois is $140 million last month, and that's been dropping significantly. So is it, you have to kind of infer from the data, Tom, but are you thinking that it's from out-of-state people that aren't coming in anymore, or is it people that are cutting back because of inflation, or what do you think it is like the last 6 months consistently seeing sales decrease?
There's several things that are going on. First, the number of new operators is zip zero. And so we're really only talking about a population of almost 13 million and 110 retail locations. That's it. No delivery. You have to go there. And just an eighth, when you walk out the door after all the taxes on there as an adult is probably in the ballpark of $75. Now, the other thing you have is medical grow that I have in my basement and a lot of other medical card holders have, and medical sales have been stagnant. However, illicit sales are up. And illicit sales are probably to explain why it's stalled and why there's no new increase. There's no new supply that's coming online in the terms of operators. There's no new supply coming online in the terms of new products that might crash the price, like in a Washington State or a California. When you walk into that dispensary or that pot shop, as they call it up there, you can leave with a high quality eighth for less than $35. That is impossible in the state of Illinois. Just absolutely impossible. Now, if we had 100 craft growers and 185 new dispensaries crashing the price, it's like from a $60 an eighth to a $45 eighth to a $35 eighth, the guys that are selling on the street, they wouldn't be as attractive anymore. But there's been no enforcement of it. The illicit market is booming, and nobody's getting arrested for it. So why? I mean, like, if you can go buy it from your guy and it's better, it's fresher, it's runts, it's not, Cresco presents a new cross. One of its parents might have been runts. It's the actual strain that you were trying to find, as opposed to the MSO interpretation of that strain. Plus, it's not a great experience buying weed in Illinois. You go there, it's kind of like, it reminds me of I'll date myself, obviously, the Seinfeld episode, the Soup Nazi, where you go in, get checked in, you say your thing, you go to the next thing, you take your bag, and yes, it's in a paper bag, and you leave. End of discussion. You're not hanging out. You don't get to inspect any flower, bulk flower, raw flower, none of that. And so that's my take as to why. And I'm kind of surprised that numbers haven't even gone down, but they've definitely stalled.
Yeah, I'm seeing even the sales growth was at 33% in January, dipped to 17 in February, came up a little bit, whereas Washington's negative. Our year over sales growth is -8, -11, -7%. And California is kind of flat. I would say 4 and 6 and 7% sales growth is flat for California. That brought in $420 million in sales in February, but is still seeing consistently decreasing sales. Christopher, what's the story behind that? Because if you're seeing decreasing in sales, a lot of people are saying it's the illicit market, and yet that, I don't know if the illicit market is taking money away, unless it's the people are running away from the regulated marketplace because of inflation or high prices, or unless there's a better alternative. What's your take, Christopher? Why is there a decrease in overall sales?
I have to admit to you, Josh, that I've been buying less weed, and I'm afraid it's crashing the market in California. I'm sorry. And I'm gonna have to up my game a little bit, and I'm gonna have to
go
kind of get
long
back
the
out
stocks
there and,
first. You know,
I'm gonna be juicing that market all by myself and getting it done. I think that a reading of most news would tell us that COVID, for example, last couple of years, I think made strange a lot of numbers, and I think we'll probably find this across the board in many industries, either big jumps or big dives because of COVID, because we've been locked inside, because we haven't been able to socialize, all of those sorts of things. Being locked inside and not able to socialize, I think, sent a lot of people to buy at the dispensaries. I think that helps sales a lot. So it may be that the pullback is really a lot more natural and a lot more sort of natural cycle than we think. I worry that we get into these, even in any other industries, we're talking about stock price, whatever, we get stuck into that quarterly reporting, which is such a short window. And that, markets and the companies and industries take a lot more time to actually evolve and have things actually happen. So if we look at every single quarter, we're more likely to try to interpret some kind of disaster into those numbers when in fact a longer look might help. So maybe the annual numbers are maybe a little bit more helpful. In California, the thing that we talked about quite a bit, and I know that everybody's sort of heard our tale of woe about massive overproduction and massive under representation at the retail level. So we have a huge amount of product that's depressing the price of that product because there's so much. So law of supply and demand means that when there's lots of supply, price goes down. Also, we have less retail options than we should. I think maybe like you were saying, Tom, about Illinois, you have a terribly small number of retail outlets in Illinois based on the population. It's massively under supported. We have the same problem in California. We have something like 70% of the municipalities in California have opted out of having local cannabis dispensaries. An effort that I'm actually sort of involved in. So, many of these municipalities actually voted in favor of, but then the local city councils didn't allow cannabis. So there's a shift, there's a change happening. The will of the voters wasn't even really respected. So hopefully those things are becoming righted as well. So prices going down, stock prices, this and that. There's a lot of consolidation happening in California as well. We have some of the bigger, more recognized brands. For example, there's the sort of the legendary dispensary brand out here called Harborside, has just merged together with another dispensary brand called Urban Leaf, and a third company, which is a manufacturer, a grower manufacturer called Loud Pack. So they put that together three-way. That new entity is called State House. Interestingly, it's being the CEO of State House is the CEO of Urban Leaf, not of Harborside. You would think that the big, well-known entity would come out on top, but in fact, that's not what's happened. So the CEO is of Urban Leaf's guy named Ed Schmaltz, who's now the head of this new entity. Just yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, the local dispensary competitor of Urban Leaf, local community being San Diego area, called March and Ash, is now combining with a grower manufacturer called Cannacraft. So that consolidation is happening a lot in California. So we're going to be seeing some shifts in branding of stores and products and that sort of thing. So there's an awful lot of change happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't have any information on the consolidation in Illinois, but Washington is one out of the top 10 brands own 1/5 of the market in Washington, whereas in California, the top 10 brands own 1/3 of the market. So pretty significant. And when we look at year over year in terms of the average amount that individuals are going in and spending, it peaked in May of last year. So with Illinois, right now, the average basket size, or the amount of that people are going in and buying each time, is decreasing. But in some markets, the amount that they're going to the store is increasing. So it's like they're going in and spending less, but they're going more often. And that's a matter of convenience. I would say In normal times, that would be an indicator that the market is maturing. But I think a lot of it has to do with inflationary pressures and people just can't afford to go and spend a lot. So in Illinois, on average, they're going in and spending $88.50, and they're going 1.5 million times. Washington, however, they're spending like $33, but they're going in twice as often. They're going in over 3 million times. So it's about price and convenience. That's the main decision maker for any product, no matter what. And in Washington, we definitely have been around a long time, and it's all about convenience. I would say the average basket size in California, as high as it was, is because you have delivery. We don't. So your delivery price of $65 keeps that artificially high. But the fact that it's at $59 now tells me that more and more people are going into the store and bringing that price down. But there's still 6.8 million people going in and buying stuff. Are you seeing anything to the contrary, Christopher, or would you say that you're seeing more people going back in as some of these lockdowns has been lifted?
I think I'm going to speculate really here, just about sort of general behavior. I do believe that inflation is affecting people like it is anywhere, and so we're probably talking about groceries and gasoline and every sort of buying decision is a little bit more expensive these days. I think that we're really, all of us are realigning or getting sort of readjusted or reacquainted with the normal work life and the normal sort of schedule of things, and going out to meals and going to the movies and all the sort of pre-COVID things that were normal business. So we're getting used to all that sort of stuff. I just think that I get the sense just sort of socially that there's sort of everyone's sort of pulling back a little bit and trying to kind of readjust and figure out what's happening. I'm just not so sure that all of these numbers are necessarily indicative. I just think that they're a snapshot maybe, but I'm not sure if they indicate any sort of long-term trend.
How about you, Tom? $88 is still quite a bit. It's almost 3 times as much as Washington. People are still out there getting their fill with cannabis, standing in long lines, or what's the scene these days?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, first, in Illinois, we only have 21 cultivators, and 6 of them control 77% of the market.
Oh boy!
And so, like, you really have a couple options. That's it. And then I think you're absolutely right that inflation's playing a role, simply because if it costs, I mean, people are on fixed incomes. They don't get to go to the boss and be like, hey, prices are up 10%. I need my weed. But weed prices really aren't up that much. And so I haven't seen inflation hit that like at the gas station, for example. And so I think that definitely explains why the sales would be down. But it's expensive to go to the dispensary in Illinois. It is. Like, if you go there and you get out and you've not spent $100, you did good. The cheapest eighth that you can get is probably $45. And that would be one of those eighths that they've cut because it wasn't selling, and then it's getting close to its recall date or its expiration date. But then, if you're Verano, which is 33 cents on the dollar of cannabis sold in Illinois in 2020, was Verano weed. Man, that's a great position to be in if you can. And then you only have so many places that it can be sold, and you had that kind of market share. All these other forces, I don't think really bother them that much.
That's Rockefeller country right there. That's Standard Oil sort of control level.
There's a lot of money being thrown around right now. Cresco Labs merging with Columbia, so you have your Illinois and your New York merger. When you guys think about that and like big cannabis versus thinking about something that people actually want, which I think of like a cookies brand that has those genetics that you desire. When you're looking at the industry as a whole and you have those two kind of dichotomies between what people want and what's being offered to you, where do you see the industry headed? Is it going to be a combination of both, or are we going to see one dominate the other, or what are you guys looking forward to?
Chris, go ahead on that one.
I think, well, first of all, I'm not sure that too many brands have really established themselves or sort of singled themselves out for any particular meaning. I mean, out here in California, for example, we have one brand that I like quite a lot just for their branding. It's called Papa and Barkley. The legend, or the founder's legend of Papa and Barkley, is wonderful and heartwarming. As a matter of fact, the founder's father was ill with cancer, and he created a cannabis balm, a topical, which helped him in his last days survive more comfortably. And Barkley was the dad's dog. So anyway, the whole brand is built around a story that's, of course, very heartwarming and connective. The workings of the brand, the people who are working and developing new products, are extremely passionate and missioned about high quality, natural, and really, really authentic processes, authentic, local growers and that kind of stuff. So they're top to bottom, really, really missioned around an absolutely top quality product. At the other side, I think we have groups like Tom, I think we're talking about, like Verano, for example. They're just big, right? Big weed. Big, like the big Canadian weed companies, right? The big giants, they have 100, 200,000 square foot, indoor grows kind of stuff. They put out, thousands and thousands of pounds out the door every week kind of a thing. And the quality is quite a different level. I'm not sure if people, honestly, there are purists, of course. We get, just like in craft beer or wine or tequila or anything, cars, I guess, people who need a certain level of quality. But I'll bet that there is, in addition to the broad legalization, I think there's a broad sort of people getting used to what they're willing to pay, what kind of high they're looking for. I think I'll bet a lot of people are willing to sort of say, I get high, that's enough. Mm. I think it may be like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with them on that. I think a lot of the consumers are not snobs. A lot of the consumers are passive. It's like, it gets me high, it costs this much, it's convenient in my purse for a vape pen or something like that, or it's a pack of pre-rolls and I'm going to go out to the game or the concert with the guys, that type of thing. Those aspects, I think, is where big weed is going to shine, when it can be convenience and when it can be keeping it low key or something like that. But what Berner and the Cookies people have done is very impressive by taking one of the biggest challenges in the industry, the acquisition of the actual tier 1 MRB plant touching license. That is a crapshoot like I've never seen. And then you put social equity into the mix. And now I'm talking about, like, I'm going to get a Ouija board out. We're going to get your team right. Let's figure out how we get through this license. And so if you have this brand that's based on IP, you can just kind of glaze over the top of that stuff and move. And that's the aspect of the industry that I find really, really intriguing. And the only way that I could see a true nationwide player, but the other guys, the Veranos, the GTIs, they're just too frickin' confident in their own abilities to even recognize that. They're like, no, our stuff's going to be the best. It's going to be amazing. We're going to have all this. And then the other guy's playing a different game and just kicking their ass. And then everybody's using their genetics and just crossing them up and then saying, like, oh yeah, we got that. It's like, it's not really that. Like, you'd have to get the IP from him to be able to put this genetic into, your circulation. But I just think that's, as people get a relationship more with the plant, it becomes more publicly accepted. I mean, like shows like this, there is an ongoing algorithmic censorship that is preventing this law from getting changed. You just can't tell how many people actually want this changed because of the active censorship of YouTube, of Facebook, of social media, because they do not want to be complicit in a federal crime. And I get it. I mean, that makes perfect sense. And so that allows these people that are publicly traded to try to force their brands by acquiring the actual license. And that it's just difficult to do because, I was talking to a guy from Missouri today and he's like, yeah, we're really lucky to be able to pull this off and all that other stuff. But of course, the mayor's friends in St. Louis got a license and the guys in Kansas City and the governor's buddies, they got a whole bunch. And I'm like, really? That happens in every state when they try to limit the market and control it. And so like Florida is the prime example of that. One company.
Oh my goodness.
And that company wrote the rules. Talk about rent-seeking behavior. It's like, what can we do that no one else has? Put an orange grove in the statute, and I see the opposite for the social equity. It's like, how do we make sure that everybody who comes in after us is going to just totally blow it, fail, and then we could pick them up for pennies on the dollar? Well, make sure that they're woefully undercapitalized. And then in the case of Connecticut, they owe somebody else $3 million to boot,
They'll sell for anything we're going to offer them. Absolutely. Then we'll pick them all up. Absolutely. Yeah. The Florida market, boy, is utterly corrupt. And we have to also remember that we're in a country where something like 70% of people drink Budweiser. So quality is not the first choice, right? The brand, the price, in the shopping cart, off to the game. I mean, it's, it's not. So there's a whole lot of adjustment. Cannabis is different by nature, that we all know about, of course, because we are among connoisseurs, and I don't even consider myself really a connoisseur at all. And yet, we are knowledgeable enough to know how quality is developed and why quality matters. But I think a lot of people are like, I got high.
Here's a loaded question. Ballot initiatives have been replaced by legislative initiatives. I think it's because lobbyists prefer that, or these vested or interested companies that want limited licenses and can, benefit financially from that, want a legislative initiative, want a limited license state. Would you guys agree with that, as we kind of see Scott's going in $250,000 in New York, and these the Cresco Columbia deal, these massive mergers where they kind of just see big conglomerates forming? Is that a result of the legislative initiatives allowing that to happen?
Maybe Illinois was, maybe California's was. But with what they're doing in New York, and that was my topic today, the dispensing side, that looks exactly like what they did in Illinois, and they're going to be screwed. But we don't know yet because we don't have all the regs. And then the cultivation side is fascinating in the sense that the only people that can do it for the first 2 years are hemp farmers. But that at least, decentralizes the supply of the product. And then there's no dispensaries yet. And they've made it, it's super social equity in New York for dispensaries. It's called justice involved. Nobody is going to be this. It's hilarious. And so first, you have to be a marijuana convict. Then you also have to own at least 10% of a company that has turned a profit for the past 2 years. So then it gets a little bit more tomfoolery. Then they judge you by how social equity justice involved you are. They say, well, was it your arrest, or was it your kid's arrest, or your spouse's arrest? Well, where were you arrested? Were you arrested in the projects, or were you arrested on Long Island? And then they go, okay, now 51% of your license has to be owned by that type of person, and 30% has to be to just one guy who has control. And you're like, all right, so you can't dilute these people out. And then how many people are actually in the state that would qualify for this? And when you have that type of thing, if it is in a limited market, the only thing that happens is lawsuits that last years. Now, if there's no numbers in the MRTA, and so the MRTA is the law that's in New York. And so if the regulator just allows an unlimited number of licenses, similar to Michigan, similar to New Jersey, then it's not so bad. But we have to kind of see how this plays out. The legislative initiative that was playing out in Illinois, I think that was written by Verano and Cresco. But you have to start somewhere, and then all the ballot initiative states, they're done. I think they've all blown out or changed their rules to almost make it precluding the cannabis ballot initiative that would be coming. Some states, and I think Florida is one of them, will change their rules of the ballot initiative to make it more difficult to get on the ballot as they see cannabis trying to come toward it. So then they're really kind of back-ended into the legislative initiative. But Illinois, our ballot initiative ability is like this frickin' thin, and other states are like that too.
Appreciate that. Well, to watch how this plays out, you're gonna have to come back to Green Rush Live next time when we bring up the same topic. But in the meantime, Tom, where can people find you at? Where are you at online? Tom Howard, of course, with Collateral Base.
CannabisIndustryLawyer.com is my law blog. And then we just updated our CannabisLegalizationNews.com. So now whenever we post a video on Cannabis Legalization News on YouTube, it gets automatically turned into a blog post. And then, of course, wherever podcasts can be downloaded, you can find the Cannabis Legalization News podcast.
Appreciate you joining us, Tom, as always. And Christopher Smith, where are you at?
Well, I'm in California, but I can be found online at AmericanCannabisReport.com. I have an interview show, American Cannabis Report, that actually also broadcasts from Pro Cannabis Media. So you can find me there on their site as well, and on all the socials, YouTube, etc. Instagram, all across the board. But American Cannabis Report, where I do print and interview content.
Well, and I'm Josh Kincaid. I've been the host while Jimmy ate a 1,000 milligram edible and passed out. No one could wake him up, but don't worry. He's going to be back next week. You can find me at the Talking Hedge or, anywhere that cannabis podcasts are played. But with that, I think we're gonna have to roll this one up. So I want to thank my guests, Christopher Smith and Tom Howard. And I want to thank all of y'all. Don't forget to come back next week for Green Rush Live. But with that, we're going to have to roll this one up. Y'all have a great weekend. We're out.
Pro Cannabis Media programming is available live and on demand on our Facebook page at Pro Canna Media, on Instagram at Pro Cannabis Media, on LinkedIn also at Pro Cannabis Media, on YouTube and YouTube Live on Pro Cannabis Media, Twitter at Pro Canna Media, and on twitch.tv/Pro Cannabis Media. So share, and subscribe to all of our content, newsletters, and shows live or on demand.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.